I decided I'm just going to talk and record because this is one of those days where when you wake up and you can't go back to sleep, not as in from going to take a nap or resting and wanting to go back to rest. You can't become unconscious when you've truly experienced reality. In this way, I mean, the Dan ego has been gone for quite some time, but every day I'm forced into acting like Dan. And what I mean by that is I'd like to just be gone and done with all these things that we're doing in this silly world. What I was planning on doing is going out and trying to shoot a meaningful video. And I instead experienced a meditation on extreme frustration and rage. Because the wind was blowing too heavy and everything I tried to record was going but that's where just life itself is happening. That's not Dan being bothered. That's the being inside of a body that was given a name that people keep referring to as Dan is experiencing and having emotional reactions with through a body, like we all do. So I want so badly, as an individual, a living being who's blessed to have this experience in the world. And now that I've realized what I have, and I know the truth of it, I'm not able to put it into perfect words just yet. I'm not able to do that in an imperfect wording. The letters are there, the numbers are there. I'm going to try to explain that to people, but I know how goofy that sounds. I know how goofy everything sounds when I say that Dan is gone. But I would have to leave the area I grew up around. I would have to leave every word that I've ever heard, or at least the definition of them. I could use them for reference points. But at this point, it's so difficult to try to make sense of it all to anyone, because everyone wakes up and does something. Like a tent right here, that's just a tent. Somebody took some fabric and made a tent and had an idea. At once, there was no such thing. And there doesn't need to be such thing. But it's great and it's convenient that we have it. Like, those are trees. Then we cut them down and make piles of wood so that we can burn a fire. Wow, isn't that great? Cool ideas that we have. But none of them are necessary exactly. Yeah, to stay warm you gotta have a fire. But you don't need to be here. Luckily you are. And Dan was once just a human being like everybody else, a person trying to make ends meet, when the ends were already met. Just because somebody watches a news show or hears about what's going on in their area, or what's going on in some other area on TV, from somebody's opinion or somebody's gathered bits and fragments of some truth or some opinions or some gossip, no matter what you hear from anyone, you could never hear from every person existing. You could never see everything that's happening. Like, life to each of us is just our experience. And now we're trying to project it on other people of what they should do, how they should be, what they should act like. And that just can't be. No matter what anybody wants to face, that is just how it is. No one is able to control you unless you let them. And now we're in a place where nobody is willing to listen to anything that makes sense, because instead of making sense of it, they're listening to what they're told. Because using their senses is so hard. Because we've become desensitized, senseless, and almost on purpose, because feeling hurts. So people want to stop feeling. So they numb themselves. And then while they're numb, we explain life around us with a bunch of numbers and digits, and everyone tells us what we're supposed to do. So we follow along, because instead of making up our own minds of what we should be doing with our lives, we follow a structure given to us by our ancestors. And that's just dumb. It's not happening, it's not working, and if people don't stop doing it, they're always going to be their own recommended slaves, because they were afraid to make up their own mind. And on a whole, no one could say no. Now, I would disappear off into the woods, but for some reason it's almost like if you don't have money, you don't have a reason to go on. If you don't have people, if you don't have things, you don't have a reason to go on. Well, those people and those things that are lost are the reason to go on. But mingling with them the way they are, the way they've been acting, the way our structures have been handed to us, is not going to do anything but be a repeat over and over. We might add some new technology, but while we do that, we're losing our own minds. We're losing our own individuality. And it doesn't seem like anyone cares about that, because anyone who's an individual and different than the whole is unaccepted. Now it's time to say, I don't care if you accept me anymore, because I'm the truth. You're acting like somebody else. You're acting like something else that you are totally altogether. So what is the point? If people don't take control of themselves, there's no reason to be around it. I mean, there's so much beauty just looking around. The sun in the sky, the clouds, the birds, the trees, just the beauty. It is beauty. But what are we doing with that true beauty? We're just not looking at it. We're turning on our television sets. We're looking for things to occupy ourselves because our minds are too out of control. So we've got to have something to distract us from the out of control minds. And if we keep doing that, we'll never make any true progress, and we'll just listen to some other people telling us what's what. I don't want to be a part of that, because it's all an act. Who else feels like they're walking around every moment of the day acting like something? But then when you find time for yourself, you don't even know what you're into anymore, because it's all stuff that you developed likeness to while you were acting in some way or another. So where do you go now when you see that it's all unnecessary? I want to build my hut out in the middle of nowhere because I don't want to be in anyone's way. I want to explain and show people what the truth really is, but it's too simple. It's too simple. Everyone's taking advantage of each other, and no one seems to want to stand up for themselves. And if somebody wants to stand up for themselves, other people feel like the only way they could do that is violently. And I'm not going to be violent to anybody. I would literally sit still and say, okay, I won't go buy anything from your stores. I'll live off the land. And then people will say, well, I own this land. And I'll say, well, I'll stay in the land of people that Dan individually recognizes as family members, and that recognize him as family members. But I don't see just them as family. I see all living things as equal family, equal life. That is the truth. And people just can't get that for some reason, because they're not willing to accept other people that look different, act different, and are way strange to them. Because it's odd, it's different. It's not what they're used to. What are you used to? Other people's handed down recommendations? Most likely. I mean, yes. Nobody, not one individual that I have ever met has had their own thoughts. They might have their own thoughts about something else that wasn't their thought. But once you start being original, people don't know how to respond. That's all I'm going to say for now. Peace.